When and where were you born?
I was born in Iowa, and I was born at the neighbor's place on the kitchen table.
In what county?
And it was right next to Polina, Iowa.
O'Brien County.
Yep.
Mom, where were you?
I was born in Cherokee County, and I was born on a farm, and I was told that I was born on the kitchen table. I didn't go to any hospital. The doctor drove out to our house.
Okay. What do you remember about your parents?
Well, my dad died when I was 7 years old.
What was your dad's name?
Ross. And he was had a heart attack, died suddenly. And so we was raised pretty much on the farm. And then the war came along, and my other brothers went to the service, and then we had to sell the farm. And so we grew up primarily in Larrabee, Iowa, and also Cherokee, Iowa. And then we moved back to Larrabee, and so that's pretty much what happened to us.
You remember anything particular about your dad?
He was a large guy, and
Like, what are you talking about?
I'm talking probably maybe about 240 pounds in that area. And he was just, he was bald-headed, and he was just a farm guy. He was a hard worker, and
How tall?
he was probably about 6 foot, maybe 6'1", 6'2" maybe at the max.
Okay. Mom?
We grew up on the farm, and what I remember about my dad was that he worked very hard, and my mother worked right along with him. When it was corn picking time, my mother went out and picked corn by hand. And my older sister sometimes would stay in the house with the rest of us girls, because we were all 4 years apart in age.
How big was your acreage?
I don't remember, because this was a rental. I would say it was probably close to 200 acres. And I do remember when I was about 5, my dad and Mom saw this farm up in O'Brien County in Iowa, and he decided to buy it, and that was 240 acres. And that's where I lived the rest of the time.
What was the house like that you grew up in?
Pretty poor. And
How many rooms?
there would probably be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 or 5 rooms upstairs and a hallway going downstairs, and no bathrooms. And we probably had 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 rooms on the main floor. But it was old. We moved there, and my dad paid $65 an acre for the farm. Had bed bugs on the inside of the house when we got there, and so we had to fumigate and kill the bugs before we moved in. It was not the best place in the world.
Did you ever have any electricity?
Yes, we got electricity later on. REA came in, and I remember in the living room that we only had just about one bulb hanging down in the middle of the living room, but that was about it. But it was a lot better than nothing. We could at least read at night and things of this nature, so it was good.
Did you have any telephones?
No, I don't think so. We didn't have a telephone, I don't think, for a long, long time. In fact, I don't even remember a telephone out on the farm.
Okay. Mom, how about you? What do you remember about your house that you grew up in? How many rooms, how many bedrooms?
Well, the first house that we lived in, that was a rental, it was a huge house. And I I don't remember much about it because I moved away from there when I was 5, but it was a very large home. And the house that we moved to, that Dad had bought, he it was a pretty nice house, really. But we had an outside toilet that we had to go to, and that was very inconvenient. I don't remember that we didn't have, well, we didn't even have water in the house when we first moved there because the hired man and Dad built trenches out to where he was going to put up the, what did they call it, the water tower? The water...
water supply, yeah.
It held the water, and that was a good time when we finally got water in the house, but we had an old-fashioned pump that we got the water out of, and but we thought it was the greatest thing to ever have. No electricity until I was probably about 8 years old, maybe.
So did you use kerosene?
Yes, yeah, we used kerosene light. At night, after it got dark, we would listen to the radio, and the rest of the house, would be dark. The only room that had the kerosene lights would be in our kitchen, and the kitchen was a large, very large room. And then we'd sit around the radio and listen to the Major Bowes amateur hour.
How did you listen to a radio without electricity, or is that when you
Then
had
we
electricity?
had, I think it must have been batteries
Okay.
that we had. And sometimes we'd play some games, board games.
Okay.
Not a very exciting life, but maybe that was why I got pretty good when I was going to school. I got pretty good grades because there wasn't anything else to do in the evening. No television. Of course, no computer. But I do remember a telephone, and it was a crank kind, and so you had to learn how to turn the crank on it, because a short crank, that would mean that was short, and then if you needed a long sound, well, then you'd have to ring it along. So some telephones had their own code, so we had to remember our neighbor's codes. Our neighbor that I played with all the time, I'd call her and ask her to come over to play, and the telephone, I still remember it. It was 2 longs, 2 shorts, and a long. And I'd have to remember that so I could call her. And but that was really a funny thing. But we thought we were really uptown, so that.